What's up, everyone? My name is Abby. I like to read, and today I'm going to be talking about Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow. So I finished this book in February, and it has taken me a long time to digest and really think about what I'm going to say, because this book is very big, a lot happens, and I just needed some time to write down all my thoughts. So, spoiler warnings. I will start out with kind of a very general synopsis. This is the third book in a series, so obviously this will have spoilers for the first and second books of the Crescent City series. So overall, I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads. In reality, I'd maybe bump it down to 3.5, but you can't do half stars on Goodreads, so I went ahead and put 4 stars. This book starts basically where the last book ended. Bryce has found herself in the world of ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Obviously, this is going to have spoilers for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Duh. She has found herself with the crew. She is with Rhysand and Azriel and Nesta. Very exciting. But what's not exciting is that Hunt and Rune and Baxian are in the prison being tortured by Lydia and the other H names. I never know their names. They all start with H and it's very confusing. Honestly, I don't know if I can really say much more than that. That's kind of where the last book ended, where this book starts. The rest of this is going to be a discussion. It's going to have spoilers for House of Flame and Shadow, so be warned. So I took a lot of notes. These are the notes that I was taking when I was reading the book. A lot of notes. And I have attempted to summarize it down to my 5 main sections that I've summarized this book up. The first section is my main issues with the book. The second is the things I loved, things I hated, the what the fuck section, and the well, isn't that convenient section. So you know what? Let's start with the things I loved. Let's be positive and start with the things I love. You know, I did rate this book 3.5 to 4 stars. It's a Sarah J. Maas book. I love Sarah J. Maas, probably one of my favorite authors of all time. But this was not one of my favorite books of hers. So we're gonna start with the things that I loved. Nesta and Bryce together. Amazing duo. But what's even better than that duo is Nesta and Bryce's mom. If you didn't read the bonus chapter, I don't remember which edition it was, but I definitely recommend to read that bonus chapter. It is a scene with Nesta and Bryce's mom. It is so sweet. Nesta really just needs a mom. She needs a mom figure in her life. But I did also really enjoy the combination of Bryce and Nesta. I think they complement each other really, really well. They are both badasses and sarcastic and witty and a little bitchy, and we love that here. I also really loved Nesta and Azriel facing the challenges of technology. It is so funny when we are combining a urban fantasy with just a regular fantasy, because there's no technology in ACOTAR, and we are now bringing in phones and Spotify, and it was just really, really funny to see Nesta and Azriel kind of be like, what? You have a picture on your phone. What is that? There's also another bonus chapter where Nesta and Azriel find out about music on the phone, like Spotify, and it was really funny and also really, really sweet. Okay, this one is a little bit morbid, but the scene where the hawk has used Rune's chewed off hand to flip them off, I found that I cracked up so hard, and I feel really bad because obviously they're being tortured and his hand has been chewed off. But it was a very comical moment in a scene of horror. Also, when Rune was growing his hand back, all I could think of was Deadpool when he has that tiny little hand growing out of his arm, and I also, that made me smile. You gotta find the humor in horrible situations. Lydia being a mom. I loved this twist in the story. Did not expect it at all. But it was so awesome to see kind of what motivated Lydia, what she was doing all of this for. I loved all the scenes with her and her boys. They were heartbreaking, just because of how they treated her at times, but also it was just so cool to see that progression. And also Rune as a stepdaddy. I hope we get more scenes of stepdaddy Rune in the future. The moment when Bryce kills Morven, and I have a quote here that I wrote down, when she says, "I'm queen, I'm judge, jury, and I'm your motherfucking executioner." I read that and I stopped, I closed the book, and I went, Eee! It was amazing. Amazing. Loved that scene. So epic. Badass Bryce. Another scene that I loved and just kind of chuckled at was when Hunt thought he was like feeling power course through his body, but it was just his phone vibrating in his pocket. So weird when you have urban fantasies. I don't read a lot of urban fantasies, so like combining technology and magic, it just really, really cracks me up. Okay, and the last thing that I have down is the scene where everyone is helping to keep the portal open at the end. It was so cheesy, don't get me wrong, so cheesy. But also it's one of those like Sarah J Maas moments where like everything's coming together and you're like, yes, the power of love. And it was beautiful, but very cheesy. So those are the little scenes that I loved. Obviously, I loved more than that in this book. The first part, or the first kind of third and the last third were so amazing. I loved those moments where you go back and forth, but it's like each perspective is having something heavy or action-filled going on, and it's like a movie, like, you know, you're switching between movie scenes at different perspectives. The middle part I didn't enjoy as much, and I'll go through kind of the key moments that I didn't enjoy. Actually, that kind of segues into my main issues with this book. One of that is the pacing. It felt either very fast or very slow. I prefer the very fast, the very slow parts in the middle. The pacing, it was just kind of, it was jumbled. And then more specifically, the point of view changes. This book is in third person point of view, and it very, very quickly switches from the different point of views. And it's not even that it goes in an order of like this person, then like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes like 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 1. Like it goes, there wasn't any sort of pattern to whose perspective we went to. And there was like parts where we were in Bryce's point of view, an intense part, and then we'd be at like fucking Ethan's mind of him talking about Sunball for like a paragraph, and then we'd go back to the intense scene of Bryce where it was just like, why this? Okay, you guys will hear a lot about my hatred of Ethan, but why do we keep going back to Ethan when there's something obviously more exciting happening with Bryce? And I will never understand that, and it makes me resent him. I just really hate Ethan. I'm gonna add him to this part of the book. Main issue with the book, Ethan fucking Sunball. That's his last name now. Ethan Sunball, that's his name, and I don't know his actual last name, and I will not learn it. The second main issue, besides Ethan, that I had with this book was the kind of unsatisfying ending. So this book, it's also the way it's been marketed. It was originally marketed as a trilogy, but as we know, there are 4 houses that these books are named after. So Sarah J Maas has hinted as there being a 4th book. She hasn't clearly been like, this is when the 4th book is happening. She's just like, well, you know, there are 4 houses in the series, and they're named after the houses. Kind of like hint, hint, there will be another book. But it's so unsatisfying to have your main storyline conclude, but then your secondary characters that equally have like a same amount of part in this book have like cliffhangers. And it's like, I would have rather had more time with Bryce and Hunt then go on and explore the other characters. And it felt different from ACOTAR. So ACOTAR has the three books in the main trilogy, but they are first person point of view. So they only follow Feyre's perspective with like maybe like a chapter of Rhys at the end of the book, but mostly Feyre's point of view. So we end her story and we go to other characters, but it makes sense for her story to be ended because it was her point of view. Whereas this book is in third point of view. So all the characters have like, not like an equal, but they share a lot of the part of the book. We go to different perspectives. So to wrap up some of those perspectives and not the other ones, it just made it very unsatisfying. So I don't know when the fourth book is coming out. It's probably going to be a couple years from now, but I'm not like super excited about it because all of my favorite characters' storylines have been like wrapped up and they have like somewhat of a happy ending. So I'm definitely interested to find out more of like what this next book is going to be about, whether it's just going to be Ethan and Tharian's point of views, because those are the ones that weren't really wrapped up, or if we're also going to have Bryce, Hunt, Rune, Lydia POVs, which I really hope so. Okay, next section is the things I hated, which seems strong. We're gonna say the things I didn't love as much as everything else. Number one, anything Ethan and Tharian, but mostly Ethan. I just cannot express how much I dislike Ethan and his storylines and anything about him. Number two, Bryce continuously tricking and betraying Nesta and Asriel. Now this is just like a personal like thing that hurts me and I'm sure the other readers. But when you think about it, Bryce doesn't know Nesta and Asriel. She has no loyalties to them. She doesn't know them. We know them. We've spent an entire series with them. So obviously it hurts us. But it definitely makes sense that she doesn't trust them and is going to betray them to get back to her loved ones. So just kind of like a personal thing that hurts me, but not a thing that I think is out of character for Bryce. Okay, this is probably the thing that I disliked the most in this book, and that is how Bryce treated Hunt. Really anything Bryce and Hunt in this book, I did not like. First of all, when the hell did they get married? I don't remember that. I think that's a big thing in the fandom. Who remembers when they got married? Is that just like a thing where you're mates and now you're married? I don't know. I don't remember a wedding at all. But this, okay. The trauma, the scenes with Hunt and Baxian and Rune in the dungeon was gut-wrenching, horrifying. They went through so much. The scenes are very descriptive and it is awful. And I feel like we didn't address their trauma at all. And Bryce especially didn't address it. She was mad at him for not going along with her plans. She questioned his love for her multiple times. And it really just kind of upset me of like, what are you doing, Bryce? This is your husband, your mate. Like, he has just been through a horrible, horrible experience. And I just really didn't like their relationship in this book, which is so sad because I really liked them together, especially in the first book. But yeah, I didn't like it, which is especially why I didn't like the ending, that their storyline is like somewhat ended, because I want to see more of that progression of them actually seeming like they're in love. Once again, I have Ethan and stupid Sunball. I wrote that down quite a bit. Oh, and then the mates thing. The term mates just honestly doesn't mean anything anymore, because it used to be like a rare thing, but now everyone has their mate. Since when are Lydia and Rune mates? Do they just decide that they're mates? Is that just them being like, I want to marry you? I thought mates was like a fate thing where it clicks into place and it's like, you're my mate, I was meant to be with you. But it really just seems like everyone's just deciding to have a mate now, and it just honestly isn't special anymore. So I just didn't really like how Rune just declared, she's my mate. Since when? Since when, Rune? Okay, and the last point I have on here is, so my favorite series out of Sarah J. Maas's world is the Throne of Glass series. And not really a spoiler, but Aelin in that series has a plan. And she does this thing where we as the readers don't know all of the plan. And when things are going wrong and we're like, how is she gonna fix this? Her plan snaps into place and everything falls together. And you're like, oh my gosh, she like tricked us. But in this book, Bryce tries to do the same thing and it just doesn't hit the same. It really doesn't. Instead of feeling like amazed and surprised, I ended up just feeling like betrayed of like, why didn't you tell anyone or the reader, me? Why didn't you trust me, Bryce, to know this information? And it just, I don't know, it just felt different. She felt like she was trying to like be like, oh, I have this secret plan I won't tell anybody, but it just, I don't know, it fell flat for me. Okay, we have now reached the WTF section. First of all, the magic language bean. WTF, what is that? Why? Surely there could have been something else to fix the language barrier other than swallowing a magic bean that made you understand language. Why a bean? The next on my list, Sigrid's entire storyline, it seemed useless. And I'm sure that we're gonna get this more in the next book, but once again, there's no like firm confirmation of who the book is about, what's happening in the next book, when it's coming out. So it's just like, it just seemed really useless and dumb, and I hated her in general. The scene where Baxen bit off Rune's hands, which ultimately didn't matter at all. They didn't escape. I don't know why it was added. Maybe just to like enhance like the experience that they went through, to really like pound down that this is like traumatic. Also, for some reason, I really thought that when they were like planning this, I thought he was just gonna like in one go just bite it off, not like chew through it. So I was like, wow, Baxian's mouth must be really big. I didn't realize that he was gonna chew it off, which is so much worse that he had to keep swinging back and chewing on his hand. Ugh, no, I don't like it. The Harpy and Sigrid being revived. Why? Number one. Two, since when are we able to revive people so easily? Why haven't we done that for everyone else? Also, this weird thing where all of a sudden they need the Firebird's body, but then it became completely irrelevant after that. Maybe that's going to be another thing in the next book, because I think they needed it to make Sigrid not a Reaper? I don't know. I just really blocked out everything of Sigrid's storyline, and Ethan, I don't know. All of that seemed very weird and not important to this book at all. Rune shooting Lydia in the thigh. Rune, what the actual fuck? What are you doing? That was not needed. That was so unnecessary. It didn't help the situation at all. Like, it was ridiculous. And one of those things I thought was out of character, just like Bryce steamrolling over Hunt, I thought that was out of character. This is another thing where I was like, Rin wouldn't do that. Like, cause I don't know, it was just very odd and I didn't like it. It made me feel icky. Okay, my next section, my last section of this discussion is the, well, isn't that convenient section. Mark being a lawyer, so they just let him go. Were they afraid of being sued? Because they kept everyone else there. In order to release them, they had to make Ethan fight Sigrid. But they just let Mark go because he had a job to go to as a lawyer. What? Another one of those urban fantasies where it just kind of like, you're like, oh, it like takes you out of the fantasy aspect because you're like, he has a normal job that he goes to? That's weird. Bryce's phone being waterproof. Well, isn't that convenient when she drops it in the river? But it's waterproof because they spelled it, so it's fine. So convenient. The hologram info dump of Celine. How convenient to the reader, which was very confusing. I didn't like the way that information was presented. It felt very like textbook factual. It felt very tell, not show. And we kept getting interrupted from this info dump by stupid Ethan doing his stupid things. But it just felt very like, I don't know, it was so much all at once. And it was confusing, and I'm gonna have to go reread it to really understand the whole thing that happened. But it just felt very like, this is here because it makes the plot easier, you know? Instead of like showing what was happening, we're like, we're just gonna have a hologram tell you all the history. Another thing that seemed so convenient for the plot, but also didn't make sense, was Morven allowing Tharian to marry Sathia. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Because Morven is controlling of the Fae females because he is protective of purifying the Fae bloodlines. He wants to keep them pure, and they have to marry certain people, and he controls them. So why would he allow her to marry a merman? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. She also felt pointless, but I think we're gonna get more of that in the next book. But it just seemed very weird and out of character for Morven to allow. This is something that happened multiple times in the book, and I think it's a Sarah J. Maas thing in general, where the characters always understand what a certain look looks like or what it means, and the other character that's getting the look translate that look. So there was one point where Baxian, Hunt, and Bryce are together. Hunt gets upset, leaves, and Baxian gives Bryce a look. And to her, that look meant, word for word, give him time, be gentle with him. What look says that? It's one thing to say gives her a sympathetic, compassionate look, but to translate his look word for word as like a sentence someone would say seems weird. So I sat there being like, okay, give him time, be gentle with him. Like, what look would portray that? Like, what? How does someone get that exact sentence from that look? It happens multiple times, but that's just one example that I wrote down. Hypaxia figured out how to make an antidote for the parasite in just hours. Well, isn't that convenient? The pack made a bullet out of their second light to help Bryce kill the Asteri. Well, isn't that convenient? Rune can now heal after taking the antidote just in time to heal Tharian from like a bullet wound in his chest or something. Isn't that convenient? This is my favorite convenient moment, which also very much is a what the fuck moment. Hunt can now use the mask because of the magical sex that he had with Bryce. So he now has a little bit of maid in him, so he can use the mask because he had sex with Bryce. How convenient that is, but also what the fuck. Jessica having to trade her life for Bryce when she dies. But we've been resurrecting so many people in this book. You couldn't have somehow resurrected Bryce and not have to trade a life for a life? Why is it that it's so easy to keep people, like to resurrect them from the dead until it's like the main character? How convenient is that we have to do this like trade a life for a life loophole? So now Jessica is like dead, but there's an afterlife, and that whole scene was weird too, of like her being dead and seeing everyone in the afterlife, and it was supposed to be one of those cool moments, but I was just very confused. So those are kind of the top moments in this book that stood out to me. It took me a bit longer to read this book, not as long as the second book took me, which was over a year. But it took me probably about a month to read this book. I did enjoy it, especially the beginning and the end. Middle was a struggle for me, but I love Sarah J. Maas. I love her books. This just wasn't one of my favorites. It didn't kind of give me that same like, ooh feeling, you know? Like I said, there were a lot of like WTF moments and moments that are just like, that seems like it's just too convenient and just like was there for the plot. But all in all, it seems like I don't like this book, but I do. There's just some moments, you know? So that is my discussion on House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what was your favorite moment of this book and what was your WTF moment of this book. Subscribe if you want to see more content, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys. but I don't know. I'm not super excited about it. Oh, what's in my eye? But they are What's up, everyone? My name is Abby. I like to read, and today I'm going to be talking about... My cat decided to use a litter box right at this moment, so we're gonna have to wait now.